So what makes for good autism representation in media, particularly in books? Not only is it a conversation that you have to approach with nuance and different considerations, what you're going to hear a lot is that there is one extreme and there is another extreme, and good representation falls somewhere in the middle. It can't be too much of one or the other. I like to start with what is presented to us about the character, especially if we're in their head, then move out to the character's immediate circle of family, friends, rogue band of adventurers, and then zoom out one step further to see how society treats autistic people or people who are coded to be autistic. So for the autistic character, my number one thing is, what is the range of autism being presented? How much of the diagnostic criteria are they including? The thing that I think you see included the most is the trouble with social cues, because that can make for a fun, quirky character who is just so cute because she doesn't get these social cues. I really want there to be more to an autistic character. How is their functioning impaired? What are their sensory issues? What are their special interests and how do they engage with them? What are their tics and repetitive behaviors? How does that impact their life? What are the ways that they move differently because they have bad coordination and they don't understand the space around them very well? You don't have to include all of those, but the more of those you include, the more holistic view we get of the character's autism. And then, of course, who is the character outside of their autism diagnosis? This can be really difficult because a lot of us autistic people believe strongly that we cannot be separated from our autism. We are not people with autism, we are autistic people. I spent a long time after my diagnosis realizing that my love for Disney and my love for urban design were actually special interests, and it leaves you feeling with this, do I have a personality or am I just autistic? But when you are writing an autistic character, I think it's important to know what makes them unique as a person, as much as I think it is important to show the struggles and show that autism is a disability and the person is not functioning the same way as the rest of their society. It's not always good to be fixated on the differences and the problems. This is the first place where you have to sort of find a middle ground. Next, how do the people around the autistic person look at them, treat them, and interact with them? Even the people in my life who love me the most, I think, have complicated feelings because my disability requires support from them, and that can be a burden. My pathological demand avoidance makes it so hard to respond to messages, even from my sisters who are my best friends. I know it's probably frustrating for them to watch me post videos on social media and still not have responded to the message in the group chat from last week. So define the relationships of the autistic person and the people around them, and define them individually. Relationships even to the same autistic person can be very different. Is it a mostly positive or a mostly negative relationship? If it is a mostly positive relationship, what are the downsides? If it's a mostly negative relationship, why does that person stay? And I love to see autistic people being a contributor back to the relationship. I think there's a tendency, especially with high support needs autistic characters, to make the people who are around them in their support network come off as saints. In real life, everyone, no matter their level of verbalization or the rate at which they have meltdowns, they have something to offer in a relationship. So bring that out in your autistic character. Finally, be very mindful of how whatever society you're writing in views and treats your autistic characters. If you're writing anything contemporary, do your research on what the treatment methods out there are, what are the positive and negative. There are a few disabilities that are very commonly comorbid with autism. How is the character's autism interplaying with their other disabilities, if they have them, and with the other aspects of them, their race, their gender, their LGBT status. Or world building from scratch, because you're writing fantasy or science fiction, you're going to need to specifically define what the society thinks of autism and the autistic people within it. Do they want to eliminate them? Do they provide supports to them? Do they shut them away? Do they keep them with their families? Are they expected to conform, to attend school and to work? For anything historical, straight historical, romance, historical fantasy, you're going to need to do a lot of research into the times because the guiding approach to autism has changed a lot throughout history. When I was writing my book that takes place in the 1920s, I got to a certain point where I realized that I had not at all dealt with the idea of institutionalization, which was the overwhelming approach to dealing with autistic people back then. My character was sort of right on the cusp in her support needs of being institutionalized or being free to live her life. That was not a major theme of her arc, but it would have been very dishonest of me to not acknowledge that if I have created a character with autism in 1928, she has this threat of institutionalization hanging over her head. And all it took was a couple of sentences at key points to acknowledge the reality of her existence. I hope you found this helpful. I'll be applying this to is Age of Scorpius, which I have sitting next to me on my desk. So I'll be providing you with updates into how I think Age of Scorpius did in all these criteria.